Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat, and welcome to my show. Now, today we are going to be handling an incredibly trippy case which occurred in the late 60s, and because John Keel often said things best, I am not even going to try to improve upon the introduction he gave this case when he discussed it in the Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. So, to quote the man himself, "Did you hear the one about the walking tree stumps?" Yes, you heard me right, the walking tree stumps. However, if you can believe it, while this is the most infamous aspect of this just absolute parade of oddness which occurred on Pioneer Mountain in Oregon in 1966, it's by no means the only aspect of this truly bizarre case. In addition to the infamous tree stumps, there are also such descriptions as sightings of a watermelon-colored cloud, things they referred to as wall donuts, and crawling lights. So, all of this activity really heavily involved the Reeves family, who lived on Pioneer Mountain in Oregon, and it began in earnest in March of 1966. The daughter of the family, Kathy Reeves, was 15 at the time, and she claimed that she and a friend were walking to her home when they noticed this kind of ruddy glow in the distance. They actually thought that a neighbor's field was on fire, but as they drew closer to the source of this light, they saw that it was actually this dome-shaped, burning-looking object, which Kathy described as looking as though it was made out of boiling smoke. So we get this kind of concept that it was this luminescent sort of seething type dome-shaped object. Now, the two decided just to continue on their merry way and make it back to Kathy's house when they noticed another bizarre light off in the distance. This one they described as smaller. They said it looked almost like someone had a flashlight with the end covered so that it wouldn't project a beam. Kathy figured that someone was trying to pull a trick on them, so she chucked a rock over at the flashlight-like object. Now, this was maybe not the best move. Apparently, as soon as she did so, a bunch of bigger lights came on surrounding the smaller one. At this point, the two of them decided to run to the safety of Kathy's house. However, the security would not last long. As soon as that initial occurrence happened, the Reeves family home began to be plagued by just bizarre and anomalous occurrences. Including these things that they described as wall donuts, these donut-shaped lights which would almost appear to crawl on the interior and exterior walls of the home, and this was accompanied by this strange, high-pitched whirring or whining noise. Now, both of these different types of phenomena were observed by Deputy Sheriff Thomas Price, who claimed that the whining-type noise sounded almost like a high-powered saw or a giant spinning top. Now, Deputy Sheriff Price was by no means the only outsider to witness the bizarre phenomena which was occurring at the Reeves residence. As a matter of fact, on March 30th, a friend of the family, a chemist by the name of Max Taylor, agreed to camp out on their lawn to see what he could make of these bizarre lights that were assaulting their property. At around 1:20 in the morning, he called up the deputy sheriff to say that there were these two blue pulsating spots of light, one on one side of the Reeves home, the other on the opposite end. He claimed that it looked as though a beam of light was piercing the residence. However, there was no beam connecting either point, and there was no other source of light visible. So by the time that the sheriff arrived, not only were there already about half a dozen witnesses looking at this strange show of lights, but as soon as he got out of his car, he looked up in the sky and saw this orange orb of light, which was performing maneuvers overhead. And then he heard the same high-pitched whining noise, and the light just kind of vanished. So, and two, this case kind of just keeps sprawling on. Apparently the activity lasted for about 6 months. Among other things, Mrs. Reeves claimed that she was awakened in the middle of the night one night to see that her room was filled with this kind of rosy glow. She claimed that it was bright enough that if she wanted to, she could have read a newspaper. She turned to go into the living room and saw that in the doorway, there was this watermelon-colored cloud just kind of hanging there. She claimed that it was filmy enough that she could see through it, but it did just kind of have this cloud-like sort of look, in addition to the rosy glow. She said that it kind of just hung around for about, a couple seconds before just slowly dissipating. In addition to that, on another occasion, a family member actually went for their gun when they saw something looking in one of their windows. However, as soon as they took aim at whatever it was, it appeared to retreat, and simultaneously the inside of the home filled with the crawling lights. Now, of course, this is even all before mentioning the single most bizarre aspect of this case, those infamous walking tree stumps. I was actually able to locate the original newspaper article which Keel had used in the Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings, in which Kathy Reeves is quoted as saying that she witnessed 3 little stumps which walked across a pasture, and that they were in a variety of colors: orange, light blue, white, yellow, and watermelon colored. It's a little weird how that same descriptive term comes up twice in this case, but whatever. Even at the time, though, both the Flying Saucer Review and the A.P.R.O. Bulletin ran stories on this case, and each time they kind of singled out the appearance of these walking tree stumps almost as like some sort of bizarre side note. So there's really not much information on the actual sighting of the stumps, which is a bummer because it is truly a very outlandish and bizarre part of this case. Now, another really interesting thing is that this story was making papers about 6 months after Kathy and her friend had first experienced that dome-shaped light and the flashlight-like light. And at that time, which was in October of 1966, Kathy Reeves actually said that she had never experienced stuff like this before that initial occurrence where she threw the rock at the flashlight. Now, I think it's really interesting that she definitely kind of singles that out as an event which just spurred this activity at her home. And apparently it got to the point that the Reeves family actually left. They packed up and they moved because the phenomenon was just so strong. The man who purchased the home after they left, Delbert Mates, claims that the phenomenon ended soon after. However, at least one report details that he actually had sheets tacked up on his windows to keep out the light from these strange luminescent circular objects which ranged from 1 inch to 30 inches in diameter, which still plagued the residents. Of course, he could have been referring to the tree stumps, which apparently had decided to make like a tree and leaf. Now, there's already a lot going on with this case, but probably the most sprawling thing about it is that these weren't isolated occurrences. It's not like the Reeves family was the only family or the only household experiencing these anomalies at this time. As a matter of fact, in the surrounding areas, people were seeing all sorts of bizarre aerial phenomena, including things described as a house-sized glowing sphere, a revolving string of Christmas lights, and even an oval-shaped object topped with a dome and multicolored searchlights. So, as with most flaps too, it's not like we have, one object which is responsible for all these sightings. Rather, we really do have this kind of, just bizarre blend of many different types of objects which people are seeing in the same area in a rather restricted time frame. And in addition to that, there's other just totally out there accounts, including one which the police straight out told the papers they didn't take too seriously. Someone reported seeing a cyclops. Now, in light of the hefty UFO presence in the area, this case was largely handled in terms of UFOs. However, not entirely. As a matter of fact, none other than parapsychologist Dr. J.B. Rhine did come forward to say that the inclusion of lights in this case bore a strong resemblance to some European poltergeist cases in which spirit lights were often observed. And of course, Kathleen at the time was 15 years old, and poltergeist agents, people who apparently are either causing or funneling poltergeist activity, conventionally are said to mainly be teenaged girls. I will also note that the description of that high-pitched whining noise as like a high-powered saw or a large spinning top is indicative not only of the bad vacuum belt description associated with Mothman occurrences, but also of the winding of a jack-type noise which was observed in the Epworth Rectory poltergeist case, and this same mechanical kind of screeching high-pitched noise has been observed in many other poltergeist cases as well. So again, this is something that's observed kind of across the board of different types of paranormal phenomena. Now, I think that the really interesting thing here is that if you look at this case in hard and fast terms, if we try to see it strictly as a UFO case or strictly as a poltergeist case, we kind of run into issues. I mean, if we look at this as a poltergeist case and Kathy was the poltergeist agent, do we consider that she's responsible also for pretty much the UFO flap that was going on in the larger area? Or is that something that's just totally coincidental, that the Reeves family was experiencing, light anomalies because of poltergeist manifestation, but also at the same time there were, just dozens of different types of UFOs being observed in the area. On the flip side, if we think, oh, there was simply a flap in this area, how is it exactly that the Reeves family home came to be kind of haunted by these light anomalies? Is it just as Kathy believed that somehow that initial occurrence when she tossed a stone in the direction of the light was kind of a catalyst and entangled the phenomena with herself and then by extension her home and family? I mean, it's a little interesting too because this belief, especially as pertaining to the throwing or striking of an object, at some sort of anomaly, is common whether we're discussing ghosts or poltergeists, fairies, or even Bigfoot. It's just really intriguing in this case that aside from the Stumps, what we would consider to be the entities angered were these very highly anomalous, in no way really humanoid or even, appearing to be living beings. We have a huge number of light anomalies in this case, and also the very strange outliers of the watermelon cloud, the thing at the window, and I mean, of course, the infamous walking stumps. But truth be told, this is one of those fantastic cases that really exists kind of at the intersection, especially of UFOs and poltergeist phenomena, which of course has been observed in many other cases. And it's an intriguing pattern to see that something which, conventionally thought shouldn't really have much of a relation, it really does. And yeah, this case is just truly probably one of the trippiest examples I can think of. So if you enjoyed this episode on the bizarre saga of the walking tree stumps of Pioneer Mountain, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may hold. Till then, you can keep up with whatever else I might possibly be doing on my website, justanothertinfoilhat.com, and for exclusive content, make sure to check out my Patreon page, also listed under, get ready for this, Just Another Tinfoil Hat. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.
Doing.